Welcome back to another episode of Breaking the Lens of Bias. My name is Kat Killian. Glad to be here with you today. My apologies for missing last week. Unfortunately, I had to leave town and was unable to go for a family matter. Anyway, today is the first day of June, as you all very well know, and this is Pride Month. Um, and so I thought today I would talk about some of the issues regarding the current climate, regarding LGBTQ kinds of issues. In particular, the trans community has been very stigmatized and things like that. And my goal here is not to get anybody to change their mind one way or another. My goal here is to get you to think about some of the issues and are the things that are being said really true? So, first, let's take the issue of drag queens and library story hours. Now, let's let's be honest about things. Um, you can look at it as a simple way. You know, I was a librarian, although I worked in a university library rather than a public library. But any programming that is done is child appropriate. So we'll look at all these things and saying, okay, somebody's coming in, they're dressed up. Usually most drag queens are exactly that, drag queens. They're a almost a caricature. People might disagree with me on that. It's taking the femininity and putting it to kind of an extreme. Um, and what's really going on here? If you take that content and you sexualize a biological male, or a male, we'll say a male, because drag queens are men who dress in drag, um, as opposed to transgendered individuals. So they are going there for the purpose of entertainment, whether that be in a adult setting, or if that is for a drag queen story hour, a geared towards children. Um, Everyone that I have seen on video, I've never seen one in person. Frankly, I don't have small children, so it's not something that I'm going to look to go to. But they're not dressed in a sexual way to promote sexuality. Okay, they're there to entertain, to engage children in order to get them to love to read. Okay, it's real simple. So my first question is going to be is, if you are against this, have you actually gone to one and seen it, or are you taking um, the the media presentation of this and taking it and expanding on it, and what is that based on? We for many time for long periods of time had people dress different than their own gender identification, um, going way back, um, in movies that we all grew up with and that our parents and maybe even our grandparents grew up with. I believe there was, I'm not recalling the name of the movie. It's a Katharine Hepburn movie from the 20s, where she dressed in drag, um, and was looking as man. The beloved children's story, Peter Pan. Peter Pan was a female, a female actor. Um, all the movies, Tootsie and Mrs. Doubtfire, um, all of those were movies that we grew up with, and I don't think there was any sexualization in those movies. The actors in those movies were portraying that to accomplish a specific goal. Peter Pan, I didn't know for the longest time. I grew up totally innocent of that until I was older, much later. because as a child I was focused on the story. Um, so, so really, if you look at it, what what is that? So, is there sexualization going on? I've been to drag shows, adult drag shows, and there is some sexualization going on, sexy dancing and all that kind of stuff. Um, that's not happening for drag queen story hours. It's somebody coming in for the purpose of entertaining the children, as I've said already. So my first question would be: is if you're going to, if you are biased against this, um, look at that, and is that really true? And if you are for it, look at it and say, is my assumption really true? Is that an innocent thing? Now it might be, how do you explain that to children? Um, and honestly, well, most children at that age, we're talking children who get read to maybe up to 8 years old. I'm thinking more three, four, five, six. Are they going to pick up on that? Or are they just going to be like, wow, what a pretty dress? And oh my gosh, your hair is so pretty. And wow, an engaging storyteller. So that's the thing. Is that really going to happen? So why do children are attracted to cartoons? Why are children attracted to um, animals that have human characteristics, whether they be real animals that are made to do that, or if they are cartoonish animals. Uh, and it's because of that whole kind of fantasy kind of thing. It's engaging to them. If I just go here as a normal person and I read a story to a child, um, again, knowing this from my background, the important thing is to be engaging. So how can I be engaging if I'm looking exactly like I do now? Well, the one thing that I can do is use my voice, paint a picture, maybe change the intonation if I'm talking about certain characters. The bear will talk like this, and oh, the little chicken will talk like this. Something to that effect, to engage the child in that activity. So dressing up, whether it be as a superhero or uh, a stuffed animal character, Mickey Mouse, or um, whatever, Bugs Bunny, or as a drag queen, it gives a layer of the dramatic, which helps to engage the child in that story being read. Especially since we have moved to such a visual society and children are always wanting, Mommy, can I have your phone? Or kids have their own iPads and they're constantly watching videos and things like this. Somebody who can entertain them and engage them in that way and use all the tools at their disposal, um, can can go ahead and do that. And if they're dressed as a drag queen, so be it. Again, is there sexualization involved? No. If you are not certain, go to one yourself with an open mind. Don't go to be critical, don't go to protest. Go and look at it and view it. Here in the Chicago area, unfortunately, there was a bakery who was supporting the community, trying to get that, and because of all the hate involved, had to close. It's very simple. If you're not interested in going to it, if you want to stay in your bias and you don't want to expand and consider the possibility that, I'm not really sure I know what these people are saying over here, and I know what my experience is, which may be of a sexual nature. Is this really true? But unfortunately, the bakery, the last day was yesterday because they just couldn't sustain it, because not because there weren't a good business and viable. It was just too much protesting, too much hate surrounding that, and it's a shame. It wasn't anywhere near where I live, so I never frequented that bakery. But they were just trying to figure out ways to engage the community as a whole, not just to people who lean politically one way or another. Okay, So let's talk about trans issues. So there's a lot of uproar about trans people in bathrooms. Um, my feeling is if somebody's going to use the bathroom, they're going to use the bathroom for the sole purpose of doing their business. Um, I have known trans people who have gone through that and who have experienced that because as they transitioned from one to another, they did not feel safe in the washroom um, of their choosing. And so now, in order for all people to feel safe, we have to switch to this multi-use bathroom, which is fine. But if people get in this idea that there is some kind of perversion going on around the bathroom, ask yourself, is this really true? Ask yourself, is this something that I have experienced? Now, I will tell you a story. When I was working at the university, um, I had an instance where we had heard an alert that somebody was going around and peeping in the women's bathrooms. And so I go in there, and I noticed it was in an intercession period, and I noticed this man just kind of standing around. Yes, it was a male, dressed as what we would typically talk about a biological male. And I went into the washroom. And one thing I happen to notice is I notice shoes. Excuse me. And so I noticed this man's shoes. And then I see the shoes walk into the stall next to me. And then I see them disappear. And I knew he had stood up on the toilet and he was trying to peep at me. I just sat there and I did nothing until someone else came in the washroom, and then he left. And he went back to where he was standing before. Uh, I went ahead then and I went to a phone at the desk and I immediately called the campus police. And he realized what I was doing. He realized I knew what had happened. And he went running. Well, given that it was an intercession period, there were police and they were there quickly and they caught him. This was not somebody who identified as trans. This was somebody who appeared as a heterosexual, who had that appearance, who had that thing, and was peeping at me over the bathroom. You are much more likely to be abused by someone in a public washroom who identifies as heterosexual than somebody who identifies as trans. So that's my experience. So that's why I'm asking you, look at your own experience. Have you actually ever seen that and done that? Have you ever actually experienced someone who is trans peeping at you in the washroom or otherwise doing something sexual in the washroom other than using the facilities for which they are intended? I would guess not. So then ask yourself, why is there this big backlash against this? What is really going on? Does the experience um, that you and anybody else you have experienced equate to that? No. My experience says that some heterosexual pervert is the one who's going to look at me in the washroom, not somebody who is trans. And like I said, I know I have been in bathrooms with trans individuals, and they didn't try anything with me other than to use the facilities for their own business. Okay, transgenderism in sports. This can be a very sticky issue for a lot of reasons. Um, but one bias against this, and this is a complex issue, so I'm not going to go into the whole spectrum of the issues around it. But the idea that someone would just say today, a male would just say today, well, I identify as female, therefore I'm going to compete as a female, because they can't compete against members of their own sex, so they're going to compete against women for that purpose. Um, given that trans people have a much higher rate of suicide, of violence committed against them, violence is much more likely to be committed against trans people, especially trans women, than the rest of the population. I mean, significantly higher. I don't have the figures in front of me, but I can put them in the chat later. Why would someone subject themselves to that, and then, because of the way people think and the way society is, have an asterisk next to their name if they were not really transgender? If you can answer that question and answer it honestly and answer it openly, then you might have something there. But every question I have asked surrounding that issue as to the why would someone do that, it comes up to they really are transgender. And so I ask you, are these prejudices that you are holding onto really true, and really dangerous? Um, you know, people use something else. I saw a meme today, and this is kind of a general kind of thing that somebody put out, and it was basically somebody covering children with their hands and a rainbow coming down so that they wouldn't understand the present day significance of the rainbow in terms of what it means to the LGBTQ community. And the text surrounding that was, I'm going to protect my children from society. It was very religious in context. That rainbow is God's sign, came after the flood, all that kind of thing. And on one hand, I can understand wanting to protect children. I really do. I get it. I get it 100%. But the question is, can we really protect our children? Well, in our society, we can't protect them from drugs. They're going to come in. How do we combat that? By education about what drugs are, what they do, and even then, some kids are going to do them anyway. We certainly, and I'm going to say, are not willing to protect our children against guns. How many people of my age, my generation, grew up doing active shooter drills? I'm going to say 0. I certainly didn't. Yet our children are that today. And we're not willing to deal with that problem. So active shooter drills are okay. It's as if the Second Amendment and your interpretation of the Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment is there for a reason, and I believe the reason that it is there for, but I think it's gotten twisted. This is, again, my opinion. So your interpretation of the Second Amendment is holy, yet there's all this railing against the LGBTQ community and that we have to protect our children from them. Fact of the matter is, children are going to be exposed to that anyway. Those children who are not exposed to it and turned out to be homosexual or transgender, because that's the way I believe God made them, they're going to feel less than. They're going to feel like they're not accepted. They're going to feel like they're wrong because either they haven't been exposed or they've been told that it's wrong. And so, again, going back, higher rates of suicide, higher rates of depression, higher rates of drug abuse in the LGBTQ and transgender community. And that's not because they go hand in hand. It's because they're used as coping mechanisms for a society that rejects people. And so ask yourself, am I protecting my children? Am I sheltering them from the world? Ask yourself, are you really doing that? Or is the best way to do that perhaps by opening your own mind, examining your own prejudices, and teaching your children about them? Um, and so with that, I'm going to close, on this Pride Month. Um, I think this Pride Month is less about gay pride, I'm queer, I'm here kind of thing. And I think it's more about educating ourselves and educating others on being different in society. I think that's what all of our history months are about. Women's History, AAPI, which was last month, um, African American History. We'll have Hispanic American History later on. And it's to learn about the valuable contributions that make up our society. So, in examining that yourself, what do queer people bring to us? Is that joy? Is that happiness? Is that inventiveness and creativity? Um, is it hardworking individuals who come, just ordinary people who grind every day, just like all of us? That is the correct. And all people want to do is live their lives. So if I can take this one day and do this theme and talk about some of these issues and talk about the biases that I see, I'm going to bring that here today and say, take a look. Is what I think really true? What does my experience tell me? Not the media, not from the pulpit, not the interpretation of what the Bible says, because that's a whole nother issue that we could go into for a very long period of time. View the movie 1946. Go and examine those biases. Is it really true? And then perhaps we can come back and we can discuss the issues in a way that looks at all sides of the issue, not just takes one stand about a particular issue, parents' rights, or protecting the children. There are a lot more deadly things to protect children from. It's not going to be a drag queen with a copy of Catcher in the Rye that's going to hurt your kids. It's going to kill your kids. So with that, I know it's kind of preachy today, and I try not to do that, but I feel pretty strongly about this issue and really want to ask everyone to look at their own biases today. So with that, we'll close this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you again next week for another topic on breaking the lens of bias. Happy Pride Month to those who celebrate. And just keep moving on. For those of you who don't, look at the contributions of LGBTQ people in our society. You might be surprised. Have a great day. Bye.